Hello everybody, welcome back, and I just want to say thank you so much for subscribing to my YouTube, and watching my videos. It's awesome. I just went over my analytics from last month and I wasn't expecting much, but I had like a lot of hours of watch time, and so I'm like, okay, I gotta deliver. I want to make a video today about becoming a photographer. I have made a lot of other videos so far on my channel, and they're just kind of for fun, goofy vlogs and things like that. So today I'm gonna give back to you guys and deliver. So, you want to be a photographer. Let's talk about the basic steps in becoming a photographer. So first is gear. You can't shoot without a camera, and it's really important to have things up your sleeve to take photos with. So I have my Polaroid, my main camera, and then a little film camera. I have the Nikon FA. It's an amazing film camera, kind of fun, for 35mm. I have the Nikon D810 for portraits and weddings, and I just have a little Instax Mini. It's really cute, just for some little snapshots, usually with friends. But you can't take photos without a camera, obviously. And in today's age, when everyone wants to be a photographer with their phone, it's important to have like some basic gear that will elevate you above the competition. So first, what you're gonna need is a camera body. Without the body, you're not able to take photos in general, and so if we're talking film photography, I would recommend starting with a decently cheap camera body. That doesn't mean it's not gonna be good. There are two different kinds of camera bodies. There's the standard kind, and then there's full frame. So a crop sensor, the standard camera over here, it's just cropped in, it's a little lower quality, it's less megapixels. It's gonna work for you when you get started out, and I would definitely recommend starting over here because it's cheaper. Then you're gonna move on over here, and this is gonna be your full frame. These cameras are a lot more money. You're looking at anywhere from $1,000 up to like $5,000 depending on your model. So I would recommend starting over here with a crop frame camera and then moving up to a full frame camera. It's important to know when to invest in your gear, and so I started with the Nikon D7000, and I believe they have like the D7100 now. But that's a great like higher end crop sensor camera, and if you shoot Canon or want to shoot Canon, I would definitely recommend looking into what model is kind of equivalent to the Nikon D7000. I think you can get that one for pretty cheap. I'm gonna link an Amazon shopping list essentially of different fun items that you can look at. So it will have the camera body that I started with, it'll have the lenses that I like. Also, it'll have some fun items like prisms, extra lens caps, and just random miscellaneous things. Once you get into photography, you can just really start messing around and getting more artistic with stuff. It's really fun to shoot with prisms, for example. Another really helpful item is a reflector. Reflectors are awesome. You can just hold it up and reflect the sun or any natural light source onto your model's face. It'll just create a nice even, soft glow. It'll light their eyes. It's just super helpful. When you're getting started, I would just recommend buying a crop sensor camera body and then buying a portrait lens. A lot of camera kits come with like a kit lens, and so it's kind of a, I don't remember, it's 24 to 55. So it has a little zoom range, but the aperture, so kind of like that nice blurry effect you can get, is gonna be really, really bad. So I would recommend buying a really cheap portrait lens. My favorite is the 50mm 1.4. If you wanna save like $200, just go for the 1.8. It's $200 cheaper, and it honestly looks almost the same. We'll talk about f-stop and aperture and all these things later. I would recommend buying a prime lens because although you can't zoom with them, you're just gonna get a very nice depth of field. You're gonna deliver a higher end product than the competition of your iPhones and people with kit lenses. And I just think overall it's a really, really helpful investment. It's cheap if you go for the 1.8, and it's very effective. Okay, other essentials are going to be, for weddings, a 24 to 70 lens. Once you're shooting professionally, we'll talk about that. And additionally, I would recommend an external flash if you're shooting weddings. You want to be able to deliver a high-end product that's gonna be well lit, and if you don't have a flash, you're gonna have a lot of low light situations, and so a flash is gonna be very essential. It's also awesome for the studio and for shooting around outdoors when it's darker. It's just really helpful to have. So an external flash would be awesome. I would recommend shooting with a really low end, cheaper flash when you begin, just to kind of get the feel of it, and then moving on to a nicer speed light. One thing that's really important is the gear does not make the photographer. Moving on to the next step of becoming a photographer once you have the gear is practice. So practice, practice, practice. The more you shoot, the better you're gonna do, the better you're gonna be, and it's really important that you have good composition. So I'm actually making another video soon. It's gonna be all about composition. So that's balance, that's color, it's contrast, it's rule of thirds, which is really important, golden ratio. I'm sure you have heard of it or you know what I'm talking about. If not, you will. And it's just all about developing an eye. And some people are naturally gifted and you can just start from where you are and you can start shooting and you're really good. And some people need to learn more about balance. There are 3 different things that are super, super, super important when you're shooting as far as composition goes. So what you're gonna need to learn is the dynamic way that ISO, shutter speed, and aperture work together. I'm gonna create a video that will talk all about those 3. It's a little triangle, and once you master that triangle, photography just becomes a whole new game for you. And I would say that's when it's time to upgrade to full frame shooting. So the way you're gonna get good composition is by studying, learning about the rules of composition, as well as practicing. The more you shoot, the better you'll, The next step to become a photographer is portfolio. It's really important to have a good portfolio. You're not gonna draw in your clients without it. The way that you can start out with portfolio is shooting for free. I know it sucks, but if you're not a photographer yet, you really can't charge anyone. You don't have a brand, you don't have marketing. You're gonna need those images. So with portfolio, I would recommend reaching out to friends when you're just starting and practicing. So shoot with them for fun, give them the photos, practice editing them. It's just like the more you shoot, the better you're gonna develop your own eye, and the more you're gonna develop the practice of working with a client and delivering a product. So once you've shot with your brother or sister or your friend enough, you can kind of branch out, maybe do some senior portraits for one of your siblings or for a friend, and it'll grow from there. So once you have moved on from the step of portfolio, we're gonna move on to marketing. And marketing goes along with portfolio. So, for example, if you're farther along in the process of becoming a photographer and you're trying to establish yourself in a certain category of photography, you need to market yourself correctly. What this means is if you want to be shooting weddings, you need to shoot weddings. And I know you can't just jump into it and start shooting a wedding out of nowhere, but what you can do is shoot, your brother and his fiance, or a friend who's engaged, or you can offer your cousin who's getting married some free portraits. Even your parents, if it comes to that, I don't recommend parents. You could just find a cute couple, for example, and shoot with them. For me, the way I become a wedding photographer is I literally just reached out to really cute couples who had like Instagram accounts and things like that and offered them a session, and I would deliver them a product and boom. If you don't want to be shooting like these cheesy low-end weddings or like these really like cheesy senior photos, you need to like really establish for yourself what kind of photos you want to take. It sounds silly, but like if you don't market, you're not going to convince anyone. Marketing is really all about convincing a client to trust you. With a powerful portfolio, you're going to be able to do that. It's way, way, way easy. They can scroll through your Instagram or go to your website and they can like see, oh, they're really good. That's where I would recommend with your marketing. Another big tip for marketing is create a website. I love Squarespace, it's awesome, it's cheap, it's very customizable, and it's a place where I can collect people's emails from my email list. They can see my portfolio, you can read through my blog, I sell presets, I sell mentorships, things like that. So overall, your website is like really where you want people to be coming to. If you're using Instagram and Pinterest and Yelp and all these things, really like the landing zone for you is your website. I would really work on adding your portfolio to a website. I also really liked Wix. I used that a long time ago. I think they have some free services if you don't want to pay yet, and you can kind of practice on Wix.com. There's also WordPress, and that's a little more advanced. You can do some coding and things like that. You can really customize your website for your client's experience. Okay, delivery. So it's awesome for delivery if you can give your clients their photos in a really visually appealing way. The way you're gonna do that is by using pixieset.com or YouPick. And both of these, I use Pixie Set by the way, both of these are places where you upload the gallery and they're gonna go through and open the gallery. It's gonna slide up with their name on it and they just get to scroll through all of these beautiful images that you've taken. And it really adds to the experience more than like giving them a Dropbox or a Google Drive. You're gonna give them more of like a custom experience. And we'll talk more about the business side of things and how to deliver photos and how to charge clients and things like that later, but these are the basic steps. The next step of the process is to start charging. Obviously, if you want to support yourself, you're gonna need to get money and get paid. So the ultimate goal of being a photographer is to get paid to take photos. And so the way you're gonna do this is by proper marketing, which we talked about, and moving forward by creating packages for your clients. And instead of shooting for free, you can start offering small packages, and I like to offer 2 to 3 options. For weddings, I have 3 different wedding packages, and for seniors, I have 2 experiences. So one of them, they get 50 edited images, and the other one, they get 30 edited images. And so you can kind of give people options, and that way they're not gonna try to get a discount, because if they can't afford you, they can go down to your smaller package. Again, we'll have a business video, and we'll talk more about like packaging and taxes and all of that meticulous stuff later. But that's really important, is to like start charging, start valuing your work. I'm gonna go through the questions that you guys asked me on Instagram and answer those. How do I do that? I'm filming on my phone. Okay, we're back. Sarah says, what is a better and more versatile lens for portrait work, a 50mm or a 35mm? That's a really good question. These are both prime lenses that I talked about earlier. I have my 50mm right here on my Nikon FA. It's an old film version, and then I have my actual 1.4 here. So I would definitely recommend a 50 because it's my favorite lens. But as far as versatility, to answer your question, the 35 is pretty great. It's more zoomed out and you can kind of see more. So if you're trying to get like full body portraits or like torso and up, 35 is good. It's just sometimes the 35 will add a little distortion and kind of like warp people's faces if you're trying to shoot in close. And so that's when this 50mm is really killer. So it's up to you on that one. I really like the 24-70 because you actually have both options. You kind of have the 35mm option and you have the 50mm option, but I do realize that's very expensive. I think the 24-70 goes for like $1,800 versus a Sigma Art 35 is $900, and a 50mm 1.4 is $400, and a 1.8 is $200. So like these prices really range. Any of them are totally gonna work. So do what you will with that. Next question. JK Photo 503. Hi Julia. She says, taxes, business licenses, worth it, the process of getting one, and finance stuff. So this is going to be discussed in another video. All right. Sterling Calvin says, would you recommend a beginner to start shooting with film or digital? This is such a good question. If you're shooting to learn aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, I recommend film, because you take your shots, you pay for your film, you pay for each shot basically, and so you're really thinking critically, and you're using a light meter, and you're really practicing actual technique. So if you're really trying to instill some rigid knowledge for yourself, and if you're trying to learn how to measure light better, I would definitely recommend shooting film. But if we're gonna be talking about starting a business and trying to make money, film is a little bit expensive. You have to pay to get it developed, and digital is very versatile. You can take 600 photos versus film, you have a roll of 36. I know that creates more work, but also when you're starting out, if you can take more, you can mess up more. And so to answer your question overall, digital. I just think it will get you in the game faster, but I do recommend everyone try some film. It's really awesome. Aaron Ray Hair, I think it's Ray, I don't know, correct me, is asking, how can I get better at taking my hair pics? We have lighting, but I don't know exactly how to use it. Try learning the difference between aperture, shutter speed, and ISO and how they interact. It's gonna give you control over your lighting completely. Juno Flair says, what's your camera? I showed them earlier, but my favorite camera is the Nikon D810. It's just awesome. It's my baby. McKenna Kirsten says, how do you transition to become a photographer that requires payments from friends? Again, with what we discussed earlier, practice, 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 and then get your portfolio together and then begin marketing. And that's the point where you can say, hey, if you hire me, this is what I can offer you, and this is what you're gonna get, and this is what it costs. So it's really that really tough practice of putting a value to your work and then enforcing it. If you think about it, friends should be supporting you for your art and not taking advantage of your art. So think of it that way, and definitely start pricing your work out. When you start out, you can start lower too and then work your way up. And we'll discuss that in the business video that I'll be making. It's just important to brand yourself and have prices for yourself. You can do this, I promise. Have you all heard fake it till you make it? It's not even faking it. You're not faking it when you go out and create portfolio, you're just doing it. So my motto is go do it. Come up with your idea, come up with the business that you want, and go do it. Obviously things will always change and your business will change just like you change, but if you go out there and create, things are gonna happen. If you sit around worrying about it or being too insecure to start, nothing's gonna come out of that, ever, from anything. And so, just go for it. Honestly, I encourage you to get started and practice and save up and invest and put yourself out there. Going from a hobbyist to a professional photographer is a huge transition and it's a huge experience. It takes time, it takes years. So really just get out there and do what you love, and eventually you can create the portfolio and you can create the marketing experience and the client experience to make money from what you do. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful in some form. Don't forget to check out the Amazon list. I will link it in this bio. It will have all of the things you might need. It will have all the gear that I use. And yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, comment them below. You can tweet me, you can DM me, you can email me. I don't care, just reach out. And get out there and create, you guys. Have a great week. I'm so weird.